Okay, so joining us today is Kara Deschenes, and this is an incredibly successful client story. And what's also great about Kara is that she's working in HR. She's working not only as a remote native, but also in an organization that hires remote employees. So we're going to get not only the perspective of her transition into remote native work, but also what does HR look like for remote and recruitment, managing, motivating. So I want to welcome Kara today. She is an HR leader that successfully moved from like in-person education oriented that was managing multiple sites and distributed teams and applying that professional experience to a new industry because education does not tend to be remote native. So that was the goal, is to switch industries so that she can continue being a leader and a dominant HR person in the remote native space. So Kara, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So Kara, first what I always want is let people get to know you as far as your background, like maybe why you chose HR, what was some of the formative aspects of your background that led you in this direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I often talk about with other HR leaders how the path to HR for everyone seems to be pretty crooked. You don't meet a lot of people that land in HR that really had like a straight path. Most people land here through some sort of journey that is sort of crooked. And mine is definitely one that was very crooked. And so my path was I graduated from graduate school with an MBA. I started working for an investment banking company and was someone who thought that that was going to be my career, and quickly found out that the financial investment world was not one that I had a lot of passion for. So I resigned from that life and became a middle school teacher, which is the totally opposite end of the spectrum. But I quickly fell in love with teaching and helping other people, the little people, and really, really fell in love with the idea of guiding people and, just really the aspect of helping. And so I had a great mentor teacher who saw in me the ability to train others because I was constantly helping other new teachers and showing them what worked for me in my classroom and things like that. So it wasn't long after I stepped into that classroom that I came out of the classroom and started training new teachers using strategies, how to, be a better teacher using instructional strategies and things like that. So I fell into a staff development role and spent several years doing staff development for a school, and eventually stepped into staff development at a just district level. I was working in a staff development role when I met a director of HR at a very large district in Florida, and met this HR director who was brand new to education. And she said to me, I really love how you conduct yourself. I really love how you conduct these trainings. I think you have a great way of captivating your audience. I need someone like you in my department who will help me turn over this department and really, make a new name for HR. The HR department really needed to establish a kind of a new presence in the district. So she said, if you come work for me, I'll teach you everything HR if you come and bring your presence, because she had asked around a little bit and knew I had a good reputation in the district. And so I said, you know what? I've been doing this for a while. Let me go and learn something new. I really liked this HR director. I felt like I could learn a lot from her and I was ready for a new challenge. So took a leap of faith, went over to work under this HR director, and she held tight to her promise and taught me everything HR, and I leveraged my relationships and we turned that department around, and I fell in love with HR for all of the same reasons that I fell in love with being a classroom teacher. I really loved helping people. I loved, it was different because I was able to help people with their careers. I was able to still coach. I was able to leverage relationships, which is something that I still do to this day. And I learned so much from that HR director, and I continue to grow in that department. And so it was something that I really enjoyed, and I found a passion for, and have just found a career in. And every new job that I took after that point was a new challenge, and I found new areas of HR. As I'm sure you know, and I'm sure everyone listening knows, HR is a huge arena, and has a huge umbrella. And so there are still things in HR that I learn every day. And so it's been a great challenge and a rewarding challenge, but I still go back to the fact that even though this path has been crooked, the one thing that I love and that drew me into this career is my ability to build relationships and really help people. That's really the source and the heart of why I came into this career and why I'm still here.
I wasn't planning on going in this direction, but, I like what you're saying about the crooked approach, because when I got done with my MBA, I ended up in a recruitment role, and that's kind of where I started this career. And like you said, there's training, there's recruitment, there's compensation, there's total rewards, there's benefits management. I mean, then there's the entire umbrella, which is you managing all those different functions. And like you said, there's a lot to learn and a lot to apply there. And when I was working as a recruiter, I just want to get your take on this statement, because the HR director was, honestly, she was racist. Okay, let me just throw it out there like that. And I confronted her on it because she used a racial slur when talking about what constituted about 75% of our employees. And I couldn't believe I confronted her when I'm essentially, basically had a great role straight out of the MBA. And she said, "You know what, Karen, I don't think HR is for you because you like people, and by the end of this, you'll hate people." And
oh gosh.
I took it to heart. I thought it was an odd statement, but what's your feelings on that? Just because this is a personal experience that I had.
It's funny, like, there are definitely days when you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is a lot. You're dealing with right? We're all human. Right. We're all human. So at the end of the day, that is one of those things, like, we're all human, but the flip side of it is we're all human.
Right. So you see a lot of things,
You see a lot of things.
Right.
And so that's the blessing and the curse of things. If someone were to say to me, you like people, so this isn't the right job for you because you're going to end up hating people, I would say, no, my challenge is to continue to like people through this, because at the end of the day, we're all human, and we're all probably trying to do our best. And I would even say to you, on some of the worst terminations that I've had to go through, at the end of the day, I usually can look at it and go, this just wasn't the right fit. And at the end of it, it's my responsibility to separate and let this person move on to find a better fit, and for us to find a better fit. And yeah, it may have ended in a bad way, but it's, at the end of the day, we've got to move on, and we're all human and we make mistakes, and it is what it is. But what a horrible thing to say to someone. You like people, and so you're going to end up hating people from this. That's terrible.
I know, based on the HR people I've talked to, other people have not said the same. And I would say it was to the point that the role wasn't a fit for her. That would be,
yeah.
And my older self would have said that. I'm like, no, I think you're the fit problem here.
Yeah. Yeah. If you, I always say, like, my job is to, like, get to a point where I've worked myself out of a job. There is no need for me anymore because things are working so well. You don't even need me. That's probably not a reality, because we're always going to need we're human and people are always making mistakes and things like that. You're always going to need HR. But if someone is to the point where they're like, I hate people, you're probably in the wrong job, because human is in this, whether it's human resources director or people director or whatever we're calling ourselves these days, people are at the heart of what we do. So yeah, you might want to move on.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think a lot of people feel this but don't know how to put their finger on it after they've been working for a while, is sometimes the HR department is essentially an extension of the legal department. And
yeah,
the humans, the people, are viewed as liabilities versus a resource. So resources only in name only. And I'm wondering, I think that this is sometimes a battle, and you can tell me as an HR leader, to switch the mentality from liability to important, valuable resource. Like literally, we cannot get the job done without these people and these humans. And how do we treat them, and how do we get the best out of them, and how do we, reward and make them happy and keep them motivated? So what are your feelings of the liability versus resource, despite sometimes human resources in name only?
I've actually heard, I've heard this described like again, we've heard like the switch from human resources to human capital, and then we've had, people operations and different buzzwords. Yeah. I really liked when there was this change for human resources to be called human capital, or human resources, human capital partners, or something like that. And the argument that I heard that I thought was really good was not to call us human resources, but to call us human capital. And the argument was, when you have something like a resource might be your Xerox machine, or your copy paper, or your pens. That's just a resource that you use, and then when it gets old, you throw it away, or you use it and then it's done. Capital is something that you invest in, and it's something that you invest in and you want to get a return from it. But in order to get a return from it, you've got to keep investing in it. You've got to keep nurturing it and keep investing in it, because ultimately you want to get that payout, or you want to get something from it. I really that clicked for me, right? Because a resource is something that you're just going to use and not think about it again. Capital is something that you continuously think about because you want to get something from it. I think that that's important, and it really, the light bulb went off for me, because again, when it's sort of like we made that transition, or hopefully we're making that transition from human resources or human capital departments going from being transactional to strategic, not just being the paperwork department, but to being strategic partners, where we're investing in our people, so that not only are we just looking at them as a resource, hey, you come in and you do your job and you do your 9 to 5 and then you leave and we don't really care about you, but we actually invest in you. We want you to be engaged. We invest in you. We care about you. We want you to be here. We want you to be happy, so that you not only are happy, but you're invested in what you're doing every day, so that you want to continue to be at this organization and you want to produce your best work. And so that it's a win-win for us. It's a win situation for you. It's a win situation for the company. And you keep coming back every day because you're happy. When you're happy, you're doing your best work and the company is successful.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, and segueing back into the world of remote native work. And I talk about the organization, both doing HR remotely. Well, we can start with your search. Because one of the challenges that we had with the search is because it was an education background. So not only were we battling going from in-person to remote HR, mm-hmm. but in addition to that, education is sometimes considered a public service field. And you can validate this because obviously you're in the interviews. The candidates are the ones that are in the interviews, not us. And it was the concept of, and you can tell me if you saw this, that public service is soft, education is soft.
Yes.
And for-profit corporate is hard. It's revenue, it's growth, we have to make the sales numbers, we have to make a lot of people effective to keep this organization going. Is that something that you dealt with, or what did you deal with in trying to get them to see, hey, I'm HR 100% first, and here's how HR translates now into a for-profit industry compared to the education industry?
Yeah, that was really challenging for me. I felt in my interview process or in my search process, I had a great number of interviews that came down to, final rounds where I was the number 2 candidate. And the feedback that I was given was, we really like you. And in fact, we wanted to go with you. But at the end of the day, the other candidate just had a little bit, the experience that matched better. And what I interpreted that as was, I was coming from education. Yeah. And the candidate was coming from for-profit experience. And what I had a hard time doing was getting a company to interpret the experience from outside of for-profit experience. And I think in my mind, where that was a struggle was, HR is HR is HR. Right. To me, it doesn't matter whether you've done HR at nonprofit, at for-profit, in an education or a service industry. It's all the basic foundation is the same. And to me, it's my responsibility as the HR leader to understand what the organization's mission and goals are, and then to carry that out from an HR perspective. And it doesn't matter if you're education-based or if you're service-based or if you're nonprofit-based or for-profit-based. Every organization has goals. I just need to understand what those goals are. And then I need to set my HR strategic plan off of those goals. And so communicating that in the right way was important for me in the interview process. And then getting an organization to see that and buy into me, it just took time. And I think that was tough for me patience-wise, but getting an organization that was willing to, for lack of a better term, take a chance when I didn't see it as taking a chance, was key. There are things, I see it all the time on LinkedIn, and this is sort of my philosophy. I would rather hire someone that has the intellect, has the right attitude. They need to have some experience in the realm that I'm hiring for, but intellect, attitude, motivation, some experience that matches. And then I can teach you the rest. And that's what I needed. I needed someone to see that motivation, that attitude, the intellect, my experience was there. And I finally got there. It just took a while. I was running into a lot of people that had some closed-minded views. And I needed somebody with an open mind. And I think you're starting to see that more and more. And we'll see it more and more across the board as we go along, but it just took a while.
So let's talk about, so how do you feel about what are the differences you're seeing between working in-person HR and then remote HR, like just plain deliverables? What's some of the challenges and differences that you're seeing?
I've always said that I feel like I'm more effective in my job remote, working in a remote environment than I was working face-to-face. And the reason why is I am a relationship builder by nature professionally. So whether I'm in person or remote, I'm going to purposely go out and build relationships. I'm going to, make time to build relationships across the organization. So that's a given, regardless of whether I'm in person or remote. I think what has changed, and I think this is across the board, is I no longer have the pop in my office and unload on me just because I'm there. We use Microsoft Teams. So whatever you're using, Zoom, Teams, whatever it is, people still reach out to me. That I still get the, hey, are you free? But they're less likely to hit me up for the random, hey, I just want to complain about this person. They want action oriented things now. So I spend a lot less time with just the random chatter, the noise. So that's really good. I feel much more effective at my job. I feel like I can get a lot more done, and I have a lot more time for strategic work than I did when I was working. I mean, I would say I'm 50% more available for strategic work than I was when I was face to face.
And working on high value items is what you were hired for, essentially, not this part. But let's say the water cooler talk is important. How do you support the team in a way, or what resources do you provide, since you're holding that role less? And also, and I'll note, because this is true, I'm sure you can say, is, the remote work and working on Teams or Zoom and things like that, there's less appetite for being able to stay on those things than there is in person. So, but how do you foster that ability, where the person is able to release?
Yeah. So I still do keep, an open environment. I still do it. It's kind of hard to put your finger on it, but I still, because I have relationships and because I invested from the very beginning in really getting to know the organization and getting to know people, I still get the, hey, Kara, I want to let you know that so-and-so is going through a really rough time right now. And so, for lack of a better term, people tell on each other, or they don't really tell on each other, but they'll give me a heads up. They'll say, hey, so-and-so has been sick for 2 weeks. They're still working, but we may want to check on them. Or
Right.
so-and-so is going through a divorce, or so-and-so just lost a parent, or whatever. And so I get those little messages. And so I still have the ability to check in on people and have those little conversations, or I still know about the little tiffs between employees because I get wind of it. Because we're still, again, I'm going to go back to, we're still human.
Right.
So people, even though they're not popping in my office, people still want to share those things. And so it's a telephone game. They'll share it. And so sometimes it doesn't get to me 100% accurately, but I can usually do a little bit of investigation and find out what's going on. And so I can still get to the bottom of things and check in with people and get conversations going. And I do still think that that's important. So I do get those conversations going. It's just, I don't have the 15 other people popping in my office to unload for 15 hours beforehand.
Well, and you have direct reports and indirect reports, meaning you have people that are managing other people. And I would guess that empowering them to field most of that is part of your work.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's important. But like you said, we're human. There's a human element here. And that is challenging. It's hard to manage the humans, right?
It is.
Because we're bringing all sorts of things to the table, both good and bad, and, so, okay. So let's talk about, what, like some of the projects that you're working on right now. And once again, if we can sort of try and differentiate, like, okay, let's say you're doing change management and you're doing it remotely, like how would it be different, just to keep the context of remote?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I've done a couple of big things since I've been here. One thing that we did right away was I changed over our benefits. I moved from one broker that we were working with to another broker. And that was an interesting change that I implemented. I had, going back to the HR umbrella, that was something new for me. I had never dabbled in benefits. And so that was a learning challenge for me. I got, dove right in and got deep into benefits, understanding the different plans and the implications of changing brokers and changing from one carrier to another carrier and things like that. It ended up being something that was very positive for the organization. We saved $250,000 right off the bat. We were able to offer better plans for our employees. And I think we also were able to roll out open enrollment 2 months earlier than we had ever done as an organization. So that was something that was a really big win for us. We also, in terms of change management, I think the most important thing was just making sure that we offered multiple ways, or multiple modes of communication for our employees. So I made sure to, put out emails. I did team blasts through our Microsoft Teams. I did a open enrollment meetings with the brokers, and then I had recordings of those meetings so that employees could get the information in various ways. So that was something that we did, and it was really successful. We did a lot of lead up to the change so that employees were well aware and had a lot of time to plan. So that was something that went over really good. And it was something that was seen as definitely a win for everyone, because not only did the organization save money, but most employees saved a lot of money per month. So that was something that was great. Right now, I have two big things that we're doing. I'm currently changing our HRIS system. We're using an HRIS system that I'm not in love with. It's not fantastic to get data out of. So I am have been looking at different systems and getting ready to sign with one system, and then we'll go through a system implementation. So I'm excited about that. We will manage the change again through a change management process, and have lots of communication to employees so they know exactly what's in it for them, how it impacts them, when they can anticipate the change, how they log into the new system and things like that. So we will go through all of that at the appropriate times. Again, this is something that's going to save the organization money. I'm not exactly sure how much, but it's going to save the organization money, and it will be much more efficient for us. So I'm really excited about that.
And data is king. I mean, you can't make data-informed decisions without data. So, I mean, and that's,
exactly.
Yeah. So that's a huge part about this that will, I think, make an impact.
Yeah. I have really been unhappy with our current system because it's really cumbersome to get data out of, which has driven the need to get a new system. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is some of their compensation reports, being able to get compensation reports, we need to look at our turnover, all of those kinds of things that systems can provide for you that our current system just can't provide. We need that robust data. So that is exciting. And then one thing that I'm super proud of that I just went before our executive team with that they approved was I just proposed for us to add 2 well-being days to our lineup for employees.
Nice.
And they approved that. And I think that is a huge win for our employees because, as you know, mental health is a big topic. And we have seen a huge rise of employees just being more open about talking to their managers about their mental health and, stating that they're getting help with mental health, or they need to take a mental health day, or, asking for mental health resources or things like that. And so not only did I roll out a training for managers on mental health and what to do when an employee discloses mental health issues or mental health challenges to them, how they should respond. But I instituted these 2 well-being days that employees can use on an annual basis, and essentially they can just use them as they need them. They're there to take for their own well-being, and they don't have to tell their managers what they're for. They can just say, "Hey, I need a well-being day," and they are allowed to take them 2 per year, and it's something that I'm really proud of. I think it's something that sets us apart as an employer, so I'm really excited about that.
Okay, let's switch gears. And I do love that there's more normalization of mental health for sure, because it was always physical health and those types of things. So, kudos to you and to the organization for recognizing that. And instead of ignoring it, really acknowledging it and shaping some policy around it.
Yep.
So my next question here is about recruiting.
Yep.
Recruiting, identifying remote staff. What are the things that you're looking for when you talk to someone? Do you want to see that they had a remote background? Because we know that's what we battled. Or what type of things are you looking to hear when you're hiring your remote staff?
So I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, and right, we're all shaped by our experiences. So I very much take my own experience into the way I move forward, and I am someone who really likes to give people chances. And I'm lucky in that I work for an organization that trusts my opinion in that way. And so they, are good with me, kind of steering this notion or this attitude. But I am looking for more of someone who has the right attitude, the motivation to succeed. It depends on the position, how much experience matters. And then, are you driven?
Because you have to be self-driven to do remote.
Yeah, you have to be self-driven. So that motivation and that drive really does matter. Other than that, I really don't care if you've worked remote before. I think it does take the right person, because someone who's completely extroverted may struggle. But again, if I'm picking that up in an interview, I may have a frank conversation with them and just say, if I'm not seeing a remote experience on their interview, I may ask them, you're seeming like an extrovert to me. This is a remote position. How are you going to feel that need? Or how do you respond when I say that? Just to have a frank conversation with them. But it's not something that necessarily scares me or would put me off if they don't have remote experience. I think that, again, we all need to be a little bit more open-minded, and give people the opportunity to try different things and to try new jobs. I love working remotely. I think that it comes down to, does someone have the motivation, the drive, the intellect, and then how much does experience matter? Because we all know that experience matters different for different positions. You couldn't put me in an IT position. You couldn't put me coding. I don't have those skills. I don't have that experience. But I could do different things outside of HR, even though I don't necessarily have, maybe that certain experience, but I'm driven and I'm motivated and I could learn those things. So I think it just comes down to kind of opening our minds.
So let's talk about more tactical, like sourcing. What tools do you use? Are you getting enough applicants into your applicant tracking system that provides you, a pool of candidates that is appropriate? Or do you go out hunting? And if you go hunting, where are you hunting?
Yeah, we're using a lot of the online sources, the Indeed, the LinkedIn, the ZipRecruiters, those kinds of sources. And believe it or not, we get crushed every time we put out an ad.
Okay.
So I watch the news and I see all of the things that say, these are high need areas, or people can't find candidates in these areas. And I just saw it for a data scientist. I saw that was a high need area and candidates are blank for that area. And I just had a job for that open and I had 1,000 applicants in 3 days. So it's not where we haven't been struggling to find candidates. And I don't know if that's because we're offering remote and you're seeing more and more companies call people back into offices. That has crossed my mind, or what the answer is.
Well, you make a great point. I mean, so it could be the opposite here is almost happening because this is a remote organization, remote native. By nature, you could be getting the top talent.
It is surprising to me that how many applicants we get, and that is what I have drawn it to, is that we are still hiring remote. And I just saw over the weekend that Zoom is calling everybody back in, and the irony of Zoom calling people back in. So I was like, what is that? But, I thought, and we do, I'm working at a smaller company, and the experience base that we're getting people from is very impressive.
Yeah, I would think talk about employer of choice.
Yeah.
This concept of we are remote native, come here. We can get the tippy top because these organizations are calling people back in. So that's a great point of, being the top, getting top talent just solely because it's remote.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see here, because I know we're coming to the end here, but okay, what recommendations do you have for listeners? Because one of the things I was going to say, about acquiring and building a remote career, and the other thing is also, I just think that a first call or a first video interview is probably pretty telling from a tech perspective, vocally, like what's going on in the background. So you're looking at their motivation, you see them on paper that they're skilled, and then how critical this piece is, because that is how you're going to be doing your job. So, it's so important to test your tech, test your sound, test your background, your lighting, not try and wing it, preferably not be sitting in your car. I don't know. What are your feelings? Maybe you don't care, but what are your feelings on that?
Oh, you know what? You have a really good point, and I'm glad you said that. You bring me to a story. I've been interviewing for one of our positions. It's a junior to mid-level position, and we hire for this position quite frequently because as we grow, we hire more of this certain level position. And I was talking to a candidate for this position, and I really liked this specific candidate. Probably one of the best interviews for this position that I had. And I thought, this person is just winning me over, from top to bottom. But what I couldn't get over was the person had a workout tank top on. And the person's hair was pulled back and looked like they had just come from the gym. And I have no doubt, based on the person's resume, that they could do this job probably with their eyes closed. And based on the interview, very experienced, just a knockout interview. And I called and talked to my boss after the interview, and I said, I just really like this person. I can't get over the fact that they look like they just came from the gym.
Right.
And my boss said, I don't think you can do it. I think you're always going to think about that. And I said, you're right. Because my worry is going to be, are you going to show up with this person has external contact. Are you going to show up with external contacts that way? And that's exactly right. I couldn't get over that fact. And so we didn't extend an offer. It's so important that when you go to the interviews, you are showing up just like you would show up for the job. And I think that was something that I struggled with a little bit at times during my interview process because, I would show up at companies and the person interviewing me would have on, they would look like they just rolled out of bed.
Right.
And I would have on like a suit because I'm interviewing for a high level HR job and I want to make a good impression. And there were times that I worried, did my appearance put them off? Did I look too formal? But at the end of the day, if that's what turned them off, or if that's the reason why I didn't get the job, then it probably wasn't the right job for me because I would rather make a good impression than to lower my standards. Because I just feel like you need to put your best foot forward. I would never discount somebody for looking good and showing up in a suit. And, maybe I show up and I look a little bit more comfortable. I always still try to look, decent when I'm working. I still get up and I still get dressed and I look decent, because I think it's important. It's all about how I feel. But I do think that, when you go to a job interview, your whole presence online is really important. You need to put your best foot forward.
Well, and let's just say, does that have to be a suit? Is a button down or a nice, clean, semi-dressy, like we used to call it country club casual, or
totally fine?
Totally fine. Okay. So yeah, I feel like one of the most difficult things, although it's less so now, is the concept of what to wear. That like everyone's really can get confused on this, and you can overdo it or underdo it. Obviously, underdoing it is almost never good, but you can overdo it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's usually what I tell candidates is, a button down, some, business casual, but pressed, make it look good, preferably new. I mean, once again, this is it. For remote work is going to be this video call. So we got to get the background, the lighting, the sound, and have a nice pressed look. That is not coming from the gym for sure. That's too bad, really.
Yeah. Too bad. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners about building a remote career, looking for remote work? Anything else that you'd like to share?
I think, just making sure that you practice being online in this setup. It can be really difficult and it can be really intimidating if you don't do it a lot. If you are working in a face-to-face setting and you are trying to transition into a remote setting, it's important that you practice on a virtual setting, because at least for me, when you're talking in this space, it can be intimidating because you're just talking to a screen.
Right.
For a natural rambler, me, it can be it can enhance your rambling because you're just talking to a screen. And yes, I'm getting your feedback right now because you're giving it to me. But in an interview setting, a lot of times the person that you're interviewing with, it can be stone cold and may not give you this visual,
a nod.
Feedback. And they may not give you a nod. They may not give you a smile. They may not, give you that feedback. And so it can be very intimidating to sit there and talk to a screen in a room by yourself. And that could enhance your nervousness. It could make you ramble more. If you're a rambler, it could make you talk less if you're very brief. So I would encourage you just to practice with your friends, with your family, whomever you can recruit to practice with, because I think that that's really important. And you want to try to be as much of yourself as you possibly can and to try and be as relaxed as you can. I think the best interviews that I've ever had are the ones where they feel more conversational, obviously. And that's when I'm more relaxed.
Right.
And so the more you can feel relaxed, the better.
But you probably experienced that a lot of the ones you moved on, you had no idea when you got off the video whether that was going anywhere, right? Did that occur?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think people are surprised that sometimes the worst feeling ones are the ones that end up going forward. Maybe that person isn't great at video, or maybe they like being the hard ass, type of interviewer that gives you nothing and you just keep delivering. But a lot of those move on. Yeah. So that one's weird. And sometimes someone's not even trained at interviewing, or if it's something engineering data, they may not have a huge personality that's coming across on the screen. So that's another thing. But okay, so I think we're going to wrap up here, Kara. First of all, I'm so happy for your success, and we achieved this, and it was huge to go remote native. And now you can bank on this for the rest of your career. And I just want to thank you also for your insight, because this is an unusual one in the sense of, you are remote native now, you're hiring remote native, your organization's remote native, and how those things are different in your experience. So I really appreciate you being here with us and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you did to help me, and I'm happy to help anytime. This has been great.
Thanks, Kara. I appreciate it. Okay. Bye now.